72 hours. You have been pinned face down in this pool of mud and rotting splinters for exactly 72 hours. Your ghillie suit, soaked with dirt and swamp water, now gives off the sour stench of sweat trapped against sticky skin, mixed with the metallic tang of rust from the rifle barrel baking under the oppressive heat. A tick is patiently burrowing into the cracked skin behind your left ear, but you cannot move even a millimeter to flick it away. Your heart pounds in heavy waves against your chest, each beat thudding straight into the earth every time you dare to blink. At 1,400 meters ahead, through the twisting mirage of heat distortion that warps the jagged concrete landscape under the harsh glare of the sun, there is a doorway. When the target steps out from that strip of shadow, you will have less than 4 seconds to force your heartbeat into absolute stillness, discard every trace of humanity, and send a bullet ripping through the air. Every cell in your body is screaming for relief from this misery. Through the scope, the world is scarred with the coarse static of a brutal reality. But this decay is not where the story began. Cold-blooded resolve is not born in mud. Your story, an exhausting climb from the very bottom of the system's muck, started many years earlier. You once started at the very bottom of the mud, an anonymous infantry soldier, completely buried in the dry sandstorms of a forward training base. There was no room there for the glorious fantasies of a new recruit. Only the merciless heat of 130 degrees Fahrenheit pouring over cracked ground, roasting every pore and squeezing out the last drop of sweat. Slung over your shoulder was the bulky M27, a lifeless block of forged metal, heavy and unforgiving, constantly grinding against your tactical vest until the skin around your collarbone bruised dark and bled beneath the fabric. Your daily routine was an endless loop of formation drills so monotonous they numbed the nervous system, all for a starvation wage of barely $2,200 a month. Sand crept beneath your dirty fingernails, slipped into the moving joints of the rifle's bolt carrier, and hardened into crusted layers across skin burnt dark by the relentless sun. At this rank, you were nothing more than a disposable pawn in the infantry's massive meat-grinding machine, a serial number that could be crossed out in red ink if a bullet found you tomorrow. Your existence amounted to a perfect zero. No one cared to remember your face until the anomaly appeared. It was a silent afternoon on the firing range. The air hung motionless under suffocating heat. You lay prone on sharp gravel, feeling each stone jab through the thin fabric of your uniform. Desert wind cut across your face, carrying waves of heat at precisely 12 miles per hour. The glare of the sun blurred the iron sights, yet the moment your cheek pressed against the cold, textured rifle stock, something savage and perfectly still awakened inside you. Your body adjusted automatically, your left elbow lowering a few millimeters into the dirt. No one had ever taught you that. The ability to read the twisting heat mirage rising from the ground, the arc of the bullet bending under the push of the wind, flowed straight from your retina through your veins, turning into an unnaturally slow breath that traveled down to the tip of your trigger finger. A dry crack tore through the air. You dropped a steel target at 840 yards, using nothing but the basic iron sight of an M27. No precision optic, no wind meter, only the absolute stillness of someone born to decide lives from a distance. The range froze. The head instructor, his face mapped with old bullet scars and his eyes clouded with years of war, slowly walked toward you. His boots crushed the gravel with sharp grinding sounds. He stopped beside you, his shadow blocking the sunlight falling across your body. He looked at the shattered steel target lying far downrange, then slowly turned his head to stare directly at you. No applause, no empty praise. He simply narrowed his eyes, brushed dust from his brow, and gave the slightest nod. A quiet, cold acknowledgement. Then he turned away, calmly pulling out a rusted ballpoint pen and writing your name in a worn notebook. That nod was not an honor, it was a sentence. That very night, under flickering fluorescent lights, a crumpled summons order slid through the crack of the barracks door. You were officially pulled from the safety of anonymity, silently packing your gear in the dead of night to step into something far more ruthless than training, a real purge. Welcome to the meat grinder known as sniper recon training. At this level, any illusion of natural talent, the flash of brilliance you showed on the range, is crushed from the very first moment. The test does not care how exceptional your trigger pull might be. It exists for one purpose only: physical eradication. It wants to grind you into fragments, rip apart the shell of pride, and see what kind of residue remains inside that fragile human body. Darkness always begins at 4 a.m. You stand at attention in a cutting, bone-chilling fog, carrying a 45-pound rucksack stuffed with soaked bricks and gear. The nylon straps bite deep into wounds that have not yet healed from the previous day's punishment, squeezing out pale yellow fluid. The 8-mile marches through chest-deep swamp water are merely the gentlest introduction. The real exhaustion, the quiet horror that slowly strangles the will to survive, comes from the stalking exercises. You press your chest flat against mud, thick with the stench of rotting roots. The mission is simple: move forward, yet it takes 3 brutal hours just to crawl a miserable 200 meters. Every millimeter of movement is silent torture. Your elbows and knees tear open as they grind against rough pine bark and sharp gravel. Your exhausted joints crack dryly after every inch you drag yourself forward. Mud packs beneath your fingernails until they split and bleed dark stains that smear across your rifle stock. Sometimes you must freeze mid-crawl, holding your breath while a venomous spider crawls across the bridge of your nose. You do not dare blink, afraid that the faintest reflection from your eye might betray your position. The pressure of the system reveals itself through cold statistics. The attrition rate is brutally fixed at 60%. 34 men step through those steel gates carrying arrogant ambition, but days of relentless sleep deprivation quickly destroy the central nervous system. Eyes grow cloudy, veins spreading red across the whites. Awareness drains from the brain, replaced by strange hallucinations dancing at the edges of vision. You begin to see shadows moving in the brush. You hear whispers rising from the dead mud beneath you. Here, surrender is not loud. It happens in silence. Right in front of you, a strong young man suddenly stops halfway up a steep incline. His lip trembles, blood seeping where he bites down. His eyes lose focus. Slowly, his shoulders collapse, and he lets the 45-pound pack fall into the mud with a heavy thud. He drops to his knees, removes his camouflage cap, and quietly walks away into the darkness, vanishing from the system without a trace. At the end of Hell Week, your body reeks of decay. Muscles spasm violently, every fiber trembling. 21 powerful figures have fallen in absolute silence. Only 11 survivors remain, clinging to the system like corpses dragged out of the swamp. But just when you believe you have reached the ultimate limit, the system almost seems to smile. That broken body you fought to preserve is not a trophy. It is only a rusted key opening a far worse door. It drags you forward into a darker, colder territory, where the blade of intellect and the crushing weight of responsibility begin to carve away at your mind. Welcome to the core operational tier, Sniper Team Leader. The environment shifts abruptly. You survive the physical purge, your paycheck bumps up by a few $100s, but the danger doesn't dissipate, it merely mutates. The raw physical agony of the training grounds metastasizes into a slow-acting, psychological poison that begins to corrode your mind. You are no longer just a grunt pulling a trigger. You are a vessel for insider knowledge. The luxury of automated technology is entirely stripped away. There are no laser rangefinders here, no digital weather stations to hold your hand. There is only your retina, a sweat-stained dope book, and the cold, deadly mathematics of the kill. You freeze in the suffocating, dusty heat of a crumbling vantage point, your mind manually calculating the ballistic trajectory. You are forced to factor in spin drift, the aerodynamic jump of the projectile, the exact barometric pressure, the ambient temperature, and the microscopic but absolute reality of the Earth's rotation, the Coriolis effect, silently pulling your bullet inches off its path. You hold these complex equations in your head while a single, stinging drop of sweat crawls into your unblinking eye. And then, the dirty truth of the system slaps you across the face. A higher rank does not equate to glory, nor does it guarantee a cleaner uniform. The grim reality of your elevated status is 18 agonizing hours pressed entirely flat against the blistering, tar-covered concrete of a hostile rooftop. It is the humiliating static reality of urinating into a plastic Gatorade bottle and defecating into a Ziploc bag right where you lie, unable to shift your hips because a single unnatural shadow or movement means immediate death. Sleep is a forgotten concept. Your body is a rigid, aching machine plagued by lower back spasms and chronic insomnia. Then comes the absolute erosion of your morality. You peer through the crosshairs and spot two figures frantically digging a rigged artillery shell into a dirt road exactly 1,100 meters away. In the valley below, a patrol of 19 Marines is approaching, completely blind to the impending slaughter. There is no adrenaline spike, no cinematic hesitation, no dramatic internal conflict. You simply exhale, letting your lungs settle into the natural respiratory pause. You squeeze the trigger. The heavy recoil jolts your collarbone. You watch the pink mist erupt through the optic lens. Their blood rapidly soaks into the unforgiving sand so that those 19 boys can pass through untouched. Those Marines will never know your face. They will never know your name. To them and to the command center, you are nothing but a ruthless, disembodied ghost crackling over the encrypted radio waves. When you lower the weapon, you wait for the remorse to hit, but it doesn't. You feel absolutely nothing. No guilt, no triumph, no humanity. Just a hollow, echoing void in your chest. And it is precisely this perfect, chilling apathy that becomes your golden ticket. The exact currency required to step out of the shadows and into the ultra-classified, macroscopic realm of the absolute elite. Crossing the final threshold, you reach the highest tier of this grinding system, Tier 1 Special Operations. At this level, you are no longer the man face down in the mud mechanically pulling a trigger. You have become a core component in the machinery that decides who lives and who dies. The power you now hold is broad and chilling. The numbers in your bank account rise with mechanical indifference. $8,000 to $12,000 arriving each month like clockwork. You gain access to unlimited training ammunition and the most advanced weapons arsenals available. The rifle in your hands is no longer a standard issue tool. It is a custom-built machine. Carbon fiber chassis, hand-lap barrel, engineered to drive a bullet into the center of a target from 2,000 meters away in absolute stillness. Picture a sealed security room with no windows. Pale fluorescent lights spill across a cold aluminum table. A photograph of a strategic target slides across the surface toward you. You sit there, staring into the hollow eyes of the enemy printed on rough paper, and a single lifeless nod from you determines whether that man continues breathing tomorrow. Yet the cruel paradox of the system reveals itself here. The higher you climb into power, the more completely the last fragments of freedom and humanity are stripped away. At this level, you officially lose your real name. Your civilian records disappear, your files are sealed, you exist only as a coded identifier buried inside classified documents stamped top secret. You become a ghost, someone who does not exist in the world. Personal freedom becomes an illusion. The same institution that pays you now watches you constantly. You are monitored, evaluated, and psychologically analyzed 24 hours a day. Periodic lie detector tests press cold electrodes against your temples and chest so the government can confirm their expensive killing machine has not lost its mind. Psychological isolation becomes absolute. No one in the ordinary world could possibly understand the dark vortex slowly forming inside your mind. The most disturbing fracture does not happen under artillery fire. It arrives during one rare moment when you are sent home. The living room is quiet. Warm yellow light glows over family photographs. You stand inside your own house carrying the sharp chill of war, the faint smell of gunpowder and dried blood that has seeped into your bones. Your children look up at you. For one frozen second, they hesitate. Something unfamiliar flashes across their eyes. They instinctively step back, shrinking away from a stranger, an icy figure who has brought a piece of hell through the front door. And the worst part, in that silent moment, when a father's heart should shatter into pieces, you stand there and feel nothing. No tears, no pain, only emptiness. Only your humanity has been eroded and bleached away by the system until there is nothing left. So hollow that even the frightened eyes of your own children cannot stir a reaction. You stand there like a dried corpse wearing the shape of a man. When emotional numbness reaches that level of perfection, time around you seems to slow. The frantic rhythm of bloody operations fades into the distance. You begin stepping backward into the shadows, quietly observing the entire system from the outside as it continues to run. Time passes, and the bloody machinery begins to slow. You step completely back into the shadows, setting aside the rifle that once reeked of gunpowder, and take on the final role within the machine, commander and master instructor. The scene freezes in silence on a rusted steel observation tower. You stand with your hands clasped behind your back while the dry desert wind throws clouds of dust against your dark sunglasses. Looking down at the sun-scorched firing range below, you see the new infantry recruits, the faint pawns standing at the very beginning of the system, awkwardly pressing their cheeks against rifle stocks. Sweat runs across their anxious faces. Their fingers tremble as they fumble with the cold iron trigger. Through your lifeless lenses, you see your younger self reflected in their eager and painfully naive eyes. You know exactly what waits for them. You know about the foul swamps of mud they will crawl through, the brutal exhaustion that will shatter their nervous systems, and the darkest psychological ghosts that will patiently wait ahead to devour whatever fragments of humanity they have left. But you remain silent. You do not offer a single warning. You stand there like a stone statue, cold and unmoved, watching their shadows stretch across the runway. Their bodies bend under enormous rucksacks as they slowly file toward the open belly of a military transport aircraft. One by one, they disappear into the darkness. The cycle begins again, because at the peak of this system of destruction, you finally understand the most brutal truth of the profession. The most dangerous weapon a sniper possesses is never the rifle. It is the ruthless patience to wait for a human life to vanish under your finger, and then to spend the rest of your life carrying that moment like a ghost that never leaves.